can Disney dig itself out of the hole that it's in? And I mean, is it possible that they can shift gears, or do you think they are too buried? What do they have to do to get out of this?
First of all, they have to want to, and I'm far from convinced that they want to.
I agree.
And if they don't want to, I mean, I don't think they can. And I think we've discussed this before. I think that this is one company that is thoroughly culturally irredeemable because of who they are and where they are and some specific aspects of their history. This is not entirely a top-down phenomenon. In fact, it might be more, more of a multi-pronged wokeness than is the case in many.
You mean
many
top
other
to bottom and bottom
companies.
to top? It's going in both directions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was on your show, Pro, that I was talking about the idea that they hire a lot of entertainment people in the parks and have done so for decades. And many, many Disney employees want it to be what it has become very much. And stockholders, the votes of stockholders are less important than the votes of management. And they're probably even less important than the votes of a large number of employees who are probably not all that replaceable. So the answer is, I don't think they can be redeemed. I think that Iger is making certain, noises so that he can sort of send a signal that, no, it's really not out of control here. We don't worry about us, Wall Street. Don't worry about us, investors. There's no reason you'd want to take any sides against our stellar management in any proxy fight. But in terms of actual change, I don't think it's remotely possible. Because, and again, it's because I don't think that they want it.
I think you're right. Certainly, the people running Disney right now do not want it. And there was a number of articles, kind of to that point. I've got a few kind of ready to go here, but one of the ones I wanted to pull up, of course, that had to do with a lot of this is, this issue of what you just correctly brought up. And we really haven't ever talked about this, I think, to any substance here on the show, but we should. And that is this idea, it's this cultural Marxist idea of stakeholder equity, right? It's not stockholder equity. The people that actually have a financial stake in the company, the people that actually have financial risk in ownership, in capital invested in the company, those are the people that should get the vote, that get the say-so of how the company's being run. Stakeholder equity now is, we need to fill up our ranks with, diversity, equity, and inclusion hires, affirmative action hires, or whatever the case may be, and not going for necessarily hiring the best people. And that's not to say that you can't hire extremely talented people that aren't white or aren't male, but the problem is when you put the first thing up front. Did y'all see earlier this week the James O'Keefe video of the IBM CEO? He's on the call. He's on a conference call or a webinar with his staff talking about you have to meet your DEI hiring quotas or you won't get your bonus. When you have stuff like this at a company, and Disney is included in this because we've heard from too many people over there that have experience with this at Disney. When you do this, you will literally hire anybody or anything that meets that criteria because your financial risk is up there. And when you do that, you wind up with a company that is going to have stakeholder equity in people that have absolutely no real connection. They have no real invested interest in the success of the company because they're just there. And they feel like, well, we're employees, so we get as much say as the owners do. No, that isn't how things work. If you want to have the same kind of say as ownership, then be an owner. Go out and start your own studio. Do something like that. But when you're making people feel good at your company with silliness and nonsense, and you're doing that to the point of where you are sacrificing literally tens of billions of dollars of revenue that otherwise should be there, that's a problem for stockholders. And short of Iger disappearing and that whole board disappearing, Ron, you're 100% right. Ain't nothing changing.
Well, I mean, keep in mind here, what you're describing would be a problem for any company, a law firm, an investment bank, you name it. But Disney is unique, not in the American economy. Obviously, there are many entertainment companies. Although, again, I think it's easy to argue that Disney is unique even as an entertainment company. But the point is, they produce content.
Yes.
So you can have an entirely non-DEI hiring process and still have DEI content. And that's something the Supreme Court has no opinion and can have no opinion about. If all you want to do is put out race-swapped retreads, and whatever else it is that is stopping people from coming to watch your movies, that's your call. That is never going to be illegal. That's a management call, and it can be made by people as pallid as I am, and as swarthy as name your favorite person of the week. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who the personnel are. But when you have that combination of that huge cultural pressure, and again, it's not only race; it's also very much the moral and sexual revolution stuff, the gender, the gender equity baloney. That really is particularly sensitive because most Americans are very open-minded about improving race relations, and they're not And the problem with the race swapping is that it's garbage content, not because it has black characters or non-white characters. It's because the content is not good. I leave that up to the many, many people who review this stuff. You just listen to Critical Drinker. We don't need to go through that. But when you have the gender stuff and the messages that are being sent about the roles of men and women, that's when even the majority of American families, and certainly the majority of many other countries' families, some including Western Europe, but also other parts of the world that are not as progressive as the United States, that's where you're going to start losing market share and audiences and box attendance. People are just not going to. People don't want their kids getting any weirded out than they already are from the smartphones they give them and the other. Listen, I don't know who's taking these kids to these family friendly drag shows. All right,
right.
My complaint
that would be me.
It's all Paul.
The parents are the ones who
Paul's
should be
kids
arrested.
have to see grandma every now and again, right? So
Parental masochists.
sorry.
My thoughts.
No,
Well,
look,
to give you guys an idea of just how crazed the Walt Disney Company has been, they brought back a TV show for their Disney Plus service, Bear in the Big Blue House, which was late 90s, early 2000s preschool. And Jim Henson Productions made the costume for this giant puppet and all of this. And so they bring it back. And of course, that's, the viewership for that is not going to be tremendous. And yet they took the time on this 20-year-old preschool show, putting on the service, they took the time to go back and to remove an episode that featured a song where it briefly mentioned mommy bears and daddy bears and what mommy bears and daddy bears do. And there wasn't a bit of that was controversial in the least, and no, Ron, not in that way, not in the den of the mommy bears and the daddy bears, but rather what the natural patterns of behavior are for guys and girls in raising a family. None of it went into anything, remotely controversial, but because it specified that there is any difference at all in the way that dads and moms act, Disney struck the entire episode. And I mean, that's
I was going to say it was
craziness.
already pretty progressive considering most of the daddy bears I know. Well, I'll just leave it at that. I mean, Paul knows what I'm talking about.
But that just goes to show you the level of rot that's in every level of decision making. I mean, that's neurotic. It's actually neurotic to go to a 20-year-old preschool show, put it on your service, and spend the time to have somebody watch every single episode, and if there is even the faintest deviation from the far left, strike the entire piece of material. That's insane.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.